Okay, so after this that I just explained, I'm gonna talk about this show. Okay, I'm just gonna start off by saying spoilers for Breaking Bad. If you haven't seen Breaking Bad, there's spoilers for Breaking Bad. If you're gonna watch Breaking Bad, then don't watch this because it's gonna spoil it for you. So yeah, thank you. So you hear like the Breaking Bad theme like very faintly, and like the camera is like zooming into like a restaurant. The theme is getting more like put together, like you can tell it's the theme. And the camera slowly zooms in through a window in a restaurant, and it goes slowly zooming into a plate, and that plate shows the number 53 on it. And then the full Breaking Bad intro, just the music fully plays then and there. Okay, so after Walt was taken to the hospital, after he died in Breaking Bad, everyone thought he was dead. So he was left alone in the hospital. But as we know from Breaking Bad before, he's escaped hospitals before. He actually ended up escaping this hospital. But his wound didn't heal. It never healed his wound from the gunshot. So his wound will kill him if he doesn't like keep taking care of it. And he can't go to the hospital for it because he'll get caught. Okay, and then he goes to a remote neighborhood to live in so he won't be recognized. So actually, a family takes him in because they think he's homeless and they don't know him. But a day later, the grandfather who lived with them kicked him out, and they were sad. So he stays in the new house, and it's actually the 910 friendly courthouse from Hello Neighbor for a few days. He stays there for a few days, and after that, Walter buys the Dev Game house from Hello Neighbor to live in, and he keeps tabs on his family from there. So this is what happens. Like Padme, Skylar has lost the will to live, and she dies. Walt attempts to take Holly, but he's too late because she's already been taken to an orphanage that he will never know about. And Walter Jr. calls cops because Walter's here. And Walt begs him not to tell them he's here, and eventually Walter Jr. agrees. And when cops arrive at the house, Walt hides in the background, and they question Walter Jr. as he acts like suspicious. Then Walter's radio, which he dropped on the floor during the argument, goes off and says, "Hey Walter, how many illegal firearms would you like to purchase?" And the cops get their guns out and tell Walter Jr. to put his hands up because they think he is the Walter who was mentioned in the radio. But then Walter comes out and he says, "Don't shoot," and the cops immediately aim at Walter. Then Walter Jr. jumps at one of the cops before they shoot Walt, and the cop accidentally shoots his fellow cop in a non-fatal place. So now Walter Jr. is fully wanted because the cops think he did this on purpose. And Walter takes this chance to kidnap Walter Jr. before the cops get up and arrest him. And cops take Walt's radio, which he bought illegally and was going to use to buy guns, but now he can't. The cops tried to tell people that they saw Walt, but no one would believe them because everyone had left Walt in the hospital and thought someone else was responsible for it. So they think Walt is dead. They don't search around for Walt, but instead they start searching for Walter Jr. So Walt takes Walter Jr. and locks him up so the cops won't find him and take his last remaining family member away. And he locks him up in the basement of the Dev Game house. And no $9 million from Gretchen and Elliot because there's no one to donate to. And Walt's full new name was Theodore Peterson Lambert. Okay, so now it's the Dev Game. So the neighbors and people start hearing noises from the Dev Game house, which were Walter Jr.'s coming from the basement. And soon the Dev Game man breaks in, which is like the player who played in the Dev Game version. Other people break in too. Most people are caught, including the Dev Game man, and put into the basement too because he's too busy to kill them right now and he just needs to get rid of them. The evil force people find out about the neighbors' actions, and they want to be the only powerful force in this land, so they decide to hunt down the neighbor so he doesn't become better than them. The neighbor finds out they're hunting him down. He does find out they're hunting him down. And one night he actually hears things and sees like a creature in his backyard. And doors in his basement start magically leading to like what looks like outside, but it's just a copy of like the buildings and the trees of the entire town. Some doors lead to like a miniaturized town, and some lead to like an enlarged town. He actually uses these mini towns to find where the forest people are, to like find where the forest is in the town and the best like entrances and exits of it, and like to spy on the forest people. The doors also randomly change the size of things that go into them, and he doesn't know why this is happening. Sometimes he hears a creature in the forest when he's like in the forest, and he sets up light bulbs in the forest to mark like safe zones, because if he had enough time to set up a light bulb, then it's a safe zone. All the while, more people are breaking into his house. Okay, so now there are too many people in his basement, so the neighbor takes some of those people to a new house that he's building, and it's the pre-demo house of Hello Neighbor. He also takes Walter Jr. to that house, but now there are two different houses making noises from the basements and causing people to break in into both of them. So now it's just exponentially growing the amount of people that are breaking in. So the pre-demo house eventually, as he finishes building it, and it becomes the demo house. And he builds all of his houses that he lives in or uses from now on. Now the demo man starts breaking in. And the amount of people in the basement causes the neighbor to get another house. And it's the early version of the pre-alpha house. And the neighbor moves Walter Jr. there too. The demo man actually follows the neighbor to that house and moves in across the street, because he's like still wondering what's the neighbor up to and stuff like that. The neighbor lures a forest person, actually, when he was in the forest, and he tricks him into chasing him, and he runs through a trail of light bulbs that he's made and tricks the forest person into going through a door that makes him small. Then he captures him, the forest person, and he locks him in a tiny room in the upside-down room in his house, which is the pre-alpha house. The house eventually becomes the normal pre-alpha house. He finishes building it, becomes the normal pre-alpha house. And okay, so now who lives across the street from him is the pre-alpha man, who has two roommates, the mysterious man and the demo man, who moved in following the neighbor. Pre-alpha man breaks into the house with the help of demo man sometimes. Mysterious man doesn't know about any of this, he just stays home. And then there's a mysterious dream that takes place here, where the neighbor's giant, and the neighbor is able to convince the demo man to join him, actually. He turns them against each other, and the demo man actually ends up killing pre-alpha man. Mysterious man finds out about the pre-alpha man's death, and he tries to hunt down the killer from now on, but he doesn't know it was his neighbor, and he moves away. And there's a green light that is on top of the house the whole time. There's also a house that is burning in the background the whole time. And it's actually a wax house that the neighbor lit on fire so that he can see the mini forest at night from his house. It was also so he can keep the forest lit up to scare the forest people away and to be able to see if they were there. And actually, the green pre-alpha light is where the dev game man is. He hides there. He actually escaped the basement, and he's all the way up into that room, and he turns the green light up every time someone unlocks part of the basement to let them know that they're on the right path. The tiny forest man actually escapes the tiny room and goes back to the forest people to tell them where the neighbor lives, but they kill him. Neighbor transformed the pre-alpha house into the oldest Alpha 1 concept art. And the dev game man is now in the yellow room on the roof. But he is stuck there and he can't turn any lights on. He's just trapped. Okay, and then the neighbor turns the house into the normal Alpha 1 concept art house. And the dev game man is still in the yellow room up in the top. And the neighbor now does like laundry and gardening for people to keep them around so that the forest people wouldn't attack. Then he stops it after someone finds a creepy room in his house. He finds like creepy rooms. Okay, and he has a room that looks like a classroom, and he uses it to pretend he's a teacher like he was a long time ago. Then he turns the house into the normal Alpha 1 house that we have in the game. And after finishing the Alpha 1 house, the neighbor gets another house in the same neighborhood to actually live in. And it was the old style version of the Alpha 2 house. Okay, this part of the story is when some of the mannequins started becoming haunted because people in the neighbor's basement died of starvation. And the neighbor discovers a strange outside room that has appeared through the basement door. But he still keeps Walter Jr. there. And that's that room that was in Alpha 1, behind the basement door, where it led to like outside. The dev game man is now still trapped in the yellow room of the neighbor's house and watches the Alpha 1 man break in. So Alpha 1 man starts breaking into the neighbor's house, and there are two mysterious dream states that happen during this time. The Alpha 1 man finds the mysterious picture of the neighbor and a friend, and the man in the picture with the neighbor is actually a longtime friend of his since the dev game times. He's like the neighbor's right-hand engineer, and he helps the neighbor with engineering everything like puzzles and building his house. The neighbor has mysterious golden apples around the house. Around this time, the neighbor visited Golden Apple Amusement Park a lot and got a bunch of golden apples and golden apple seeds almost every time he left. The Alpha 1 man, after solving all the secrets and getting buried by the neighbor, he escapes and he moves away. And there's a scene of the neighbor actually hitting a bat against his Alpha 2 house and damaging it, putting a hole in the wall and in the roof, and even breaking a window. The neighbor owned another house in the Alpha 1 neighborhood, which was the old version of the Alpha 2 house, so he put it for sale knowing that the Alpha 1 man would buy it. It was the Alpha 2 house, and he had just damaged it to lower the price of the house to increase the chances of Alpha 1 man buying it. He also changed the entire design and art style of the house to bring down the value, and also so that the player wouldn't recognize it as the same style as the neighbor's and wouldn't know that the neighbor was behind this. Okay, so the Alpha 2 shed is contaminated, so he uses a boat to get it to the lake in Alpha 2 map, and then he hid the boat. He got a new identical shed and he put it in the backyard. He hid the boat in the basement, actually, and there's a comedic scene of him and his engineer friend trying to get it down there. And after Alpha 1 man moves inside the Alpha 2 house, the neighbor steals the house and the Alpha 1 man's ID and everything to lure him back into the house to kill him. So this is also where the neighbor moved Walter Jr. after Alpha 1. And this is the neighborhood with the graveyard where the past victims of the neighbor who broke into his house are. After Alpha 1 man gets into the basement and finds his ID in the creepy basement, he also finds a map to the neighbor 3 house, the neighbor _ 3 house, which was built for this purpose, where the neighbor was supposed to live after the Alpha 2 house needed to be used for things. The Alpha 1 man makes it there and he reports it because it wasn't lawfully built there, and it gets confiscated by the government. While Alpha 1 man's stuff was in the neighbor's basement, the neighbor looked in Alpha 1 man's laptop and he found all the neighborhoods that he was going to move to in the future. And he picked the most likely one he would move to and built a house across from the street of the house he would most likely buy. And he started building the Alpha 3 house. And it was inspired by the new Alpha 2 art style, which the neighbor started to like. And it was a rough draft. It was the rough draft of the Alpha 3 house, where it was like all white before, and then it became the Alpha 3 house, finished. And it was also slightly inspired by the neighbor _ 3 house. Okay, so now the neighbor is at the Alpha 3 house, and this is where the neighbor took Walter Jr. after Alpha 2, and the neighbor also moves the boat from Alpha 2 into this map, and he ditches it in the lake here. Alpha 1 man moves there and he sees the neighbor's house across the street, as predicted, and he breaks into the neighbor's house to find any evidence that the neighbor is a killer, and he solves all the secrets, and he only breaks in at night to hide his actions. And he just finds a mysterious picture of the old Alpha 3 concept art, and after Alpha 1 man finds nothing and loses interest in the house after discovering all the secrets, he stops breaking in. Because of this, the neighbor plans to upgrade the house to lure him in again. And the factory in this map is where the neighbor and his engineer friend used to work together. They made material for the neighbor's house. They made an illegal and very valuable product. Then they made a dangerous fume and they blamed it on other workers. And the fume caused the factory to be abandoned, as they planned so no one would ever find out what they did. After that, the engineer gets a new job at the gas station in the Alpha 3 map. And the engineer is actually the owner of the 910 friendly courthouse. And long ago, he and the neighbor moved into it and shared rent until the neighbor was able to buy the dev game house, which was only a couple houses away. This is also the neighborhood with the hospital where Skylar passed away, and also the graveyard where she was buried. This was also when the shadow thing started appearing, which were scary visions that the neighbor had after locking Walter Jr. up. The shadow thing is actually what made the doors go into random places and change sizes of things in the dev game, and it started closest to Walter Jr. in the basement, and then moved on to bigger things. The shadow thing created all three of the dream states in the pre-alpha and alpha 1, and the room behind the basement door in alpha 1. And in alpha 3, it made the ending. And that's when the neighbor found out that it was doing this, and the shadow thing secretly reveals like bits of the neighbor's story through dream states, and the neighbor teamed up with the shadow thing, and it took his ideas and it made things. So they tested this out by making a simple black box, and they also made the early fear rooms in alpha 3, which were warped copies of like places on this map. Okay, and now the neighbor has upgraded the alpha 3 house to the alpha 4 house. The neighbors around the area think that the neighbor's house looks cool, and they start updating theirs to look like it. Then the neighbor built things inside the black box that he and the shadow thing made, and it turned out to become the basement in alpha 4. Now that the neighbor sees that it was a success, they complete making the darkness fear room and the school fear room. Alpha 1 man breaks in again and discovers nothing important. He breaks in during night and day times now because he's gotten used to it, and he finds the golden apple secret. The error code here that takes you outside of the map is just a map to all those locations outside of the map. The neighbor slowly upgrades the house into the beta 1 house, and so on. Okay, and then actually the neighbor went back to the alpha 2 house midway here, and he upgraded it, and he built upon it, and he turned it into the Act 1 house. Before that, he turned it into the hide and seek version of the Act 1 house, and then the Act 1 house. The neighbor also took Walter Jr. to this house slightly before the main story, and now this is the main story. This is where Nicky Roth started breaking into the neighbor's house, and he was trapped by the neighbor and put into the neighbor's basement. The shadow thing also created the 2 dream states in Act 1 for Nicky Roth, and Nicky Roth is actually Lewis from Breaking Bad, Walter Jr.'s friend. And the neighbor doesn't kill Nicky Roth because he feels bad that he's a kid and he's too busy. Okay, and because Nicky Roth was trapped in the neighbor's basement and he was a very popular kid, a group of kids, which were his friends, look for him. These are the kids from Secret Neighbor. After they find the neighbor and break into his house a lot, he builds the first Secret Neighbor house, which was based on the neighbor _3 house, to live in because he couldn't live in the Act 1 house anymore because of all the action. Soon kids find that house too and start breaking in, thinking he's hiding things about Nicky in there too. So he gets an idea and he builds all the other Secret Neighbor houses as diversions for the kids to break into there instead of his main house so they wouldn't find Nicky Roth. He even built a house that was almost the same as the Act 1 house. The Golden Apple Amusement Park here is the 5th one, the one that the neighbor uses in Secret Neighbor. The demo man actually works at Golden Apple Amusement Park as an engineer, and he rigs some of the rides that the kids who knew a lot about the neighbor and solved a lot of puzzles were riding, and then after that he kidnapped them without the neighbor knowing. And he has done this several times, and each time it happens and a kid goes missing, the Golden Apple Amusement Parks get less and less popular and more abandoned. And he learned engineering from the neighbor's engineer friend in the picture. The guest costume was first made and used by the neighbor here in the Secret Neighbor houses as one of the costumes in Secret Neighbor. The Act 1 house was slowly developed into the Act 2 house to keep Nicky from escaping, and this was where Nicky Roth escaped on his own, ironically. And the shadow thing also made 2 more dream states for Nicky Roth during this time. After he escaped, the neighbor was scared that he was going to tell his parents and that they would find the neighbor, so he moved away. And the police find out about Nicky Roth after he tells his parents, and they see the Act 2 house, but it's too late because the neighbor's already moved away. Then the Act 2 house slowly becomes the burned down version in Act 3, after kids vandalize it or still look for Nicky Roth or for evidence. And the only piece of evidence they finally found was a picture of the neighbor. Okay, so now the neighbor took Walter Jr. back to his house in Alpha 4, which became the Beta 1 house after the events of the Act 2 story. And this house is a gradual update of the Alpha 4 house. The more Alpha 1 man breaks into it, the Alpha 4 house becomes the Beta 1 house, then the Beta 3 house, and then it becomes the Act 3 house. And, well, here, first, the Alpha 4 basement becomes the Beta 3 basement, and they add a new fear room, the supermarket, and they also add a new room after the basement where the neighbor is a giant. And the error code in Act 3 that takes you outside the map is just a map to all those locations outside the map. Alpha 1 Man beats Beta 1, Beta 3, and Act 3. The neighbor and the shadow thing had also created a new place after the giant neighbor place in Act Final. And he fights and defeats the shadow thing. And at the very end, when he leaves the basement where the neighbor is trapped, Alpha 1 Man saw the cutscene, then went to the exit door, and when he opened it, he thought, and then he went back, and he sat there for a long while. He realizes that the neighbor is being haunted by the shadow thing, and he decides to free the neighbor. He sees that the neighbor is being haunted by the thing, and he frees the neighbor from that house that he's trapped in at the end. Then they both leave the basement, and the neighbor says bye to him and lets him go. This was the player that defeated the shadow thing at the end, and then freed the neighbor from that final level in Act Final. Okay, and now the player has defeated the shadow thing, and it no longer haunts the neighbor. The shadow thing had created those last two levels in Act Final without the neighbor knowing, and it based the shadow boss fight on the neighbor_3 map. The neighbor goes to a restaurant for fun, actually, here. And this is where he makes the plate with the 53 on it. Then the neighbor and Alpha 1 Man have a bunch of sleepovers and dinners and tea parties and box fort challenges. And then the neighbor tells him the secret of the golden apples. The supermarket from the Alpha 3 map is teamed up with the secret organization, the Golden Apple Agency. They have golden apples that show secrets of their owner when thrown into a trumpet, and they are onto the neighbor. Every time he visits Golden Apple Amusement Park, which is also secretly part of the organization, they give him a lot of golden apples and seeds. The neighbor also was onto them and hid all the golden apples and seeds, and he also built secret bases in their amusement parks. But they also built secret bases, secret facilities in his houses and basements, like the vent in Act 3, and the Act 3 basement, which made noises leading to a facility. The neighbor hid most of the golden apple seeds that the organization gave him, and the empty water tower on this map. Then he tells the player about how the picture in the Alpha 3 concept art, how the picture of the Alpha 3 concept art he found in Alpha 3 was actually the early design for the Alpha 3 house. He tells the player how the picture of the Alpha 3 concept art he found in Alpha 3 was the early design for the Alpha 3 house. Then he tells him the reason why he kept so many mannequins around, and it was to make it look like there were people at his house because he didn't have a family. Then they decide to completely get rid of the shadow thing, so they find a new secret in the house which actually leads them to another weird location where they team up to beat it. And this is the scene from the Golden Apple secret from Alpha 4, and the player remembers it now and he realizes this is what it was. It is also the Nintendo trailer scene. They completely defeat it, and then they hang out more. But the neighbor has to move away after the police have searched the entire Alpha 1 neighborhood and are slowly moving on to the Act 3 neighborhood, which is the one the neighbor and the Alpha 1 Man are in. The neighbor gives Alpha 1 Man the Act 3 house, and he has it for a short while, but then he gets a little uncomfortable with it, and Alpha 1 Man moves far away. Okay, and then the neighbor goes on to move Walter Jr. into a different house. That house attracts a lot of noise. He builds another house, attracts a lot of noise. Another house, trapping more people in them, which are attracting more noise. And it's just a bunch of houses that the neighbor built to trap more kids and people, but these houses are causing more kids and people to break in, so he has to build even more houses to trap them inside, and it keeps multiplying. And these end up all becoming the houses in the Hello Neighbor mod kit. Okay, and then now the neighbor decides it's too risky to keep moving Walter Jr. to houses that aren't fully secure, so he decides to make an entire neighborhood and hide him in the basement of a house there. He calls this neighborhood the Distant Neighborhood, and it is the Hello Neighbor 2 map. He starts building an Alpha 2 house in it, and and he puts Walter Jr. there. This house is the same one from the animated series, and it is where Nicky Roth starts breaking in. The Nicky Roth from the animated series is a different character from the Nicky Roth in the game. And the secret neighbor kids in the animated series are different from the ones that were searching for Nicky in the Act 1 house. And this is when Season 1 and 2 and future seasons of the animated series happen. Also, all of the Hello Neighbor books, 1 through 10, happen here or are told as stories.